He seemed like just another retiree, until a young Air Force recruit noticed the tattoo on his hand. The symbol made the boy go pale. From that moment on, everything they thought they knew about the old man crumbled. The waiting room at the medical wing of Keesler Air Force Base buzzed with quiet chatter, the kind that fills silences between strangers. Recruits sat slouched in plastic chairs, scrolling on phones or fiddling with their uniforms. And then there was him, the old man with the faded baseball cap and pressed khakis, seated by the window, reading a dog-eared copy of Catch-22. His name tag read simply Walter, and to most he was just a friendly presence, the kind who gave you a nod, maybe a quiet semper fi, and went back to his book. But when Travis Whitaker, fresh out of basic and jittery with the nerves of his first medical evaluation, glanced over and caught sight of the tattoo on Walter's weathered hand, everything in his body froze. It wasn't a skull or an anchor, nothing you'd find in a biker bar. No, this was different. A small, sharp symbol, a black circle broken by a single vertical line, like a keyhole split open. Travis had seen it once before, buried deep in a classified training document labeled "Do Not Replicate." His pulse spiked. He looked again, hoping he was mistaken. But the ink, though faded, was unmistakable. That mark was reserved for operatives who operated without names, without records, ghosts sanctioned by the Pentagon. According to official history, they didn't exist. And yet here he was, sitting across from him, smiling like a grandpa waiting for his checkup. Travis didn't know what to say. He couldn't even move. All he knew was this: whoever this man really was, he wasn't just some retiree killing time at the base clinic. For years, Walter had claimed the same wooden bench, near the walking trail just outside the base fence. Morning after morning, like clockwork, he'd settle in with a thermos of black coffee and a newspaper folded neatly under one arm. He never wore sunglasses, even when the Mississippi sun blazed down. Just a soft baseball cap with a faded U.S. Marine Corps emblem and that faint, half-smile that made him look more like someone's retired uncle than anything remotely mysterious. To the joggers and dog walkers who passed him, Walter was background noise, a pleasant fixture of base life. Some assumed he was a vet, maybe a mechanic from back in the day. Others guessed he just liked being close to the place. No one asked questions, and Walter never offered answers. He'd nod at folks, sometimes toss a casual morning kid to passing recruits, but never lingered in conversation. It wasn't that he was cold, just distant, the kind of distant that felt deliberate. Travis had seen him there a dozen times before the day in the clinic. He'd even nodded back once or twice. But after spotting the tattoo, the image burned into his brain like a branded memory. Travis started watching him differently. Every movement, every pause in his reading, every quiet sigh suddenly felt loaded, as if the man was holding something tightly inside, something that didn't want to be seen. What struck Travis the most wasn't just the symbol. It was how casually Walter carried it. No shame, no effort to hide it, as if daring someone to ask. But no one ever did. Later that week, on a rare, cool morning, Travis walked the perimeter path before duty and spotted Walter ahead. The bench was empty, and Walter was standing, stretching his back, looking toward the sunrise over the airstrip. For a split second, he looked alert. Too alert. Like a man waiting for a signal. It was gone in a flash. The posture softened, the face relaxed, but Travis had caught it. That same day, during chow, Travis asked an older tech sergeant if he knew anything about the guy who always sat on the trail bench, the old man with the Marine cap. The sergeant replied, frowning, "Yeah, folks, just call him Walt, shows up at the base now and then, think he lives in Gulfport, quiet guy, harmless." But Travis wasn't convinced, not anymore, and later that night when he looked up the tattoo online, tried to find any mention of the keyhole-shaped symbol, the pages either redirected or didn't load at all. One link took him to a red screen marked "Access Denied." That was when he knew he wasn't imagining it. Walter wasn't just a retiree, he was something else entirely. That night, Travis dreams of the tattoo, but in his dream, it's not on Walter's hand, it's on his own. Travis couldn't stop replaying the moment in the clinic, the way the light hit the tattoo just right. The thick, weathered skin of Walter's hand didn't hide the design, it emphasized it. It looked out of place, almost surgical in its precision. That wasn't your average barroom ink. That was a mark of belonging, a signature of something secretive, possibly dangerous. He'd seen the image once, tucked inside a thick training binder during an off-the-record seminar in week 5 of basic. The instructor hadn't mentioned it out loud, just flipped the page fast, muttered classified ops insignia, and kept going. But Travis had a good memory photographic. Said Dan. The symbol had lodged in his brain. The shape was unmistakable. The next day, he pulled aside his friend Alex, a fellow recruit from Phoenix, who liked conspiracy podcasts and late-night YouTube rabbit holes. If anyone could help, it was him. "You ever seen this before?" Travis asked, sketching the mark on a napkin with a ballpoint pen during breakfast. Alex raised an eyebrow. "That looks weirdly familiar, like CIA Black Project kind of thing." "Where'd you see it?" "Clinic on some old guy's hand." "No way, you mean like a retiree?" Travis nodded slowly. "Name tag," said Walter. Alex leaned in, voice low. "Okay, seriously, that symbol's not some biker tat. That's deep cut stuff. Like DIANSA stuff, they in Virginia type of thing." "You're sure you saw it, right?" "I'm sure." Something shifted in Alex's face. He wasn't grinning now. He was studying Travis like he was crazier, onto something real. That night, the two of them dug deep online, jumping from forum to forum, sifting through old message boards and archived Reddit threads with more question marks than answers. Most of the posts were cryptic. Some were deleted mid-thread, but one phrase kept popping up in connection with the symbol, Orpheus cell. "What the hell is that?" Travis murmured. Alex leaned back in his chair. "No clue. Never heard of it. But if that symbol is tied to it, and the old man's got it on his skin, we might be sitting on something huge." Travis didn't say it out loud, but the idea that Walter might be part of some forgotten military unit, something erased from history, chilled him more than it excited him. Because if that was true, then why was Walter still here? Later, that night, Travis receives an anonymous text. No number. Just 5 words. "Stop asking about the mark." The text message stayed on Travis's screen like a stain he couldn't scrub out. 5 words. No punctuation. No contact name. Just a warning, plain as day. "Stop asking about the mark." At first, he thought it might be a prank, Alex messing with him. But when he showed it to Alex the next morning in the barracks, the guy looked legitimately spooked. "That's not me," Alex said, voice flat. "And if someone's watching us this close, maybe we need to back off." But Travis couldn't. Not anymore. He'd always been the curious type. The kid who read the appendices in school textbooks, just for fun. But this wasn't school. This was something bigger. Something that made his stomach twist with a mix of fear and fascination. He knew there were things buried deep in military archives, things not meant to see daylight. But he never thought he'd find one of them sitting across from him at a base clinic. So, the next time he saw Walter, Travis decided to try something bold. It was late afternoon, and Walter was back on his bench, sipping coffee from the same dented thermos, a pair of sparrows hopping near his boots. Travis walked over slowly, heartbeat in his throat. "Sir," he said, standing beside the bench. Walter looked up. His expression was calm, like always, friendly, but the eyes, they were sharp, measuring. "You're one of the new ones," he said, tapping the side of his temple as if searching for a name. "Travis, right?" Travis nodded. "Yes, sir. I noticed the tattoo on your hand the other day. It looked familiar. I was just wondering ... what does it mean?" Walter's expression didn't change, not a flicker, but he placed the thermos down carefully on the bench beside him. "You ever heard of the phrase, 'Don't dig if you don't want to know what's buried'?" Travis blinked. "Yes, sir." Walter gave a small, tight smile. "Then take the advice." Silence stretched between them. The sparrows flew off. "I didn't mean to pry," Travis added quickly. "It's just I recognized it from something I saw in training. Only once, and it's been eating at me." Walter stood, slowly, with that same casual grace he always had. He didn't seem angry, just ... heavier now, like someone carrying more than he used to. "Kid," he said, looking him dead in the eye, "some knowledge comes with weight, more than you're ready to lift. Forget the mark. It's not for you." And just like that, he walked off, the sound of his boots, crunching gravel, echoing longer than it should have. As Travis watches Walter disappear around the corner, he notices something tucked under the bench, where the thermos had been. A torn scrap of paper with a single word on it, Orpheus. The scrap of paper sat on Travis's desk like it was radioactive. One word, all caps, written in ink that bled a little around the edges. Orpheus. It wasn't just a name now, it was an invitation, or maybe a test. Walter hadn't handed it to him, hadn't said anything else. He'd just left it. Like he wanted Travis to decide what came next. The base library wasn't exactly equipped for deep research into covert operations, but it did have one dusty computer in the corner. With limited access to old service records and internal newsletters, Travis logged in under his student ID and typed in Orpheus cell. Nothing. He tried Operation Orpheus, then just Orpheus and Orphic symbols plus military. The results were either blank or redirected to vague references in post-Vietnam briefings. One article mentioned irregular units working without traditional oversight. Another referenced an Orpheus clearance level, but it had no link, no footnotes. Everything smelled half-sanitized, like someone had gone through and wiped out the meat of the files, leaving just bones behind. Frustrated, Travis turned to someone who might still have access to more. Chief Master Sergeant Donald Green had been on base longer than most buildings. He was a nonsense meat-and-potatoes kind of man, but known to have a soft spot for curious kids who asked good questions. Travis waited until evening chow to approach him. "Chief Green, sir, can I ask you something weird?" The older man grunted. "How weird?" "Classified weird." Green raised an eyebrow but motioned for him to sit. Travis lowered his voice. "Does the word Orpheus mean anything to you? In a military context?" For a moment, Green didn't move. Then he leaned back slowly, jaw tight. "Where'd you hear that?" Travis hesitated. "A name I stumbled across. It just stuck with me." Green narrowed his eyes. "Listen, son, there were units back in the day. Special programs, ones even the brass pretended didn't exist. Orpheus was one of them. Experimental intelligence operations. No patches, no chain of command. They took orders from somewhere else. Where?" Green's voice dropped to a near whisper. "Nobody ever said, and nobody ever asked." Then he leaned forward, his face suddenly serious. "You don't want to chase ghosts, Whitaker. You find their trail, you follow it far enough, ... they start chasing you back." Travis thanked him, heart pounding, palms damp. He had the sense that he'd just brushed up against something ancient and dangerous. But more than fear, what filled him now was resolve. He needed to know who Walter really was, and why that name, that mark, had found its way back to the light. As Travis walks back to the barracks, his phone buzzes. A restricted number sends a photo. It's him, sitting in the library earlier that day, looking at the Orpheus files. The caption reads, "You're being watched." The photo had changed everything. It wasn't just that someone was watching, it was where they were watching from. The angle was close, too close. It had been taken from inside the library, maybe even the same room. That meant whoever sent it hadn't just hacked a camera. They'd been there. Near him, maybe watching the whole time. Travis barely slept that night. He kept playing over his conversation with Chief Green, the clipped tone of his voice, the sudden seriousness. He'd brushed against something real, and now it was brushing back. The next morning, Travis skipped morning PT and took the long path around the southern edge of Bath, hoping to clear his head. That's when he saw Walter. Not on his bench this time. He was standing outside the commissary, chatting with someone. An older man in plain clothes, a retired master sergeant, by the look of him, had his hand on Walter's shoulder and was laughing. But what caught Travis's attention was the name that left the other man's lips. He heard it clear as a bell. "Rook, Rook," the man said again, louder, this time. "I'll be damned. After all these years, you're still walking around, like you never vanished off the map." Walter's smile tightened. "I told you, Don, I retired. Just like you." But there was a flicker in his eyes, something between pride and warning. Travis ducked behind the side of a vending machine and listened as the men chatted for a few more minutes. Most of it sounded like harmless nostalgia, but then Don lowered his voice. "They still watching you." Walter shrugged. "They never stopped." The words hit Travis like a body blow. He waited until the older man left, then approached Walter slowly, cautiously, like a kid nearing a rattlesnake. Walter saw him coming but said nothing, just gave a small nod. "I heard him call you Rook," Travis said, his voice careful. "Is that your name?" Walter looked at him for a long moment, then sighed. "No, it was never my real name. Just one I used, ... when I couldn't afford to have a real one." "Why?" Walter looked out across the tarmac where the jets roared. In the distance, their engines screaming against the silence. Because some missions don't end when the plane lands. Some keep going ... long after you wish they didn't. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a matchbook, the kind you'd get from a bar. He pressed it into Travis's hand. The cover was blank, but on the inside flap, in clean block lettering, was an address. "Go here," Walter said quietly. "But don't go alone." Travis opens the matchbook again later that night and notices something new beneath the address, barely visible in pencil. A second name is scrawled, R.A. Langston. Travis stared at the name, R.A. Langston. It didn't mean anything to him at first, but the address below it matched a location on base, an unused wing of the old library, sealed off for renovations for over a year, or at least, that's what the sign had said. The next evening, after duty hours, he grabbed Alex, who had reluctantly agreed to tag along just in case this turned into some CIA-level mess, and the two made their way to the back of the building. The sun was low, painting everything in gold and shadow. The door was supposed to be locked. It WASN single quotes T. Inside. The air was stale, like old paper and forgotten dust. The lights flickered. Travis led the way down a hallway that looked untouched in decades, until they reached the room listed on the matchbook, room 3B. Walter was already there, seated at a round table with a folder in front of him, like he'd been waiting a long time. He looked up when they entered. No smile this time. "You came," he said. "Both of you. That's good. It means you're not stupid, just stubborn." Travis sat down slowly, eyes on the folder. "You said some missions don't end. What does that mean?" Walter opened the folder without a word. Inside were faded photographs, some in black and white, others clearly taken on old military film stock. They showed a group of men and women in desert fatigues. No insignia, no names, all of them wore blank expressions. But what stood out were the eyes, hard, tired, and far too aware. Walter pointed to one photo. "That's me. And that," he said, tapping a younger, sharper-looking version of himself, "is Rook, my alias." Travis leaned in. "What was Orpheus?" Walter looked away. "It wasn't a unit. It was a decision. The kind the government makes when regular channels aren't enough. We weren't soldiers. We were tools. We did things no one else would, and erased every trace when we were done." Alex swallowed hard. "You mean assassinations?" Walt didn't answer, which said enough. He slid a single document across the table, an old dispatch report, heavily redacted, with one line circled in red ink. "Operative Langston reported terminated. No remains recovered. You were declared dead," Travis whispered. Walter nodded. 35 years ago. And for a long time, I let that be true. Why come back now?" Alex asked. Walter's gaze met Travis's. "Because something's starting again. And I need to know if you're smart enough ... to stay out of it." Walter pushes one final photo toward Travis, a surveillance image taken just days ago. In it, a man wearing the same symbol tattoo stands in a crowd. Only, it's not Walter. It's someone else entirely. The photograph shook Travis more than he wanted to admit. It wasn't the quality, grainy and a little overexposed, but the familiarity. The man in the image looked disturbingly like Walter, only younger, his build leaner, his stance sharper. He wore a gray hoodie and jeans, blending into a crowd at a small-town farmer's market in Alabama. But on his hand, clear as day, was the same broken circle tattoo. "That's not you?" Travis asked. Walter didn't respond right away. His eyes remained fixed on the photo like it had insulted him. "No, that's someone who was supposed to be gone," he finally said. "Someone from the original cell." "You mean, someone else from Orpheus is still active?" Walter leaned back, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "Not just active. Coordinating. Watching. We disbanded in '89. At least, I thought we did. But a few months ago, I started getting signs. Small things. Memos with our old codes buried inside. Blank envelopes mailed to P.O. boxes I hadn't used in decades." Alex looked uneasy. "So why you? Why come out of hiding now?" Walter's face hardened. "Because when ghosts start walking in daylight, someone needs to notice. Someone needs to remember the rules." Travis turned back to the photo. "Where was this taken?" "Birmingham. 2 weeks ago." "I didn't take it." That hit like a cold slap. "Then who did?" Walter hesitated. "That's the part that keeps me up at night." because whoever took this has access. 2 people, 2 locations, 2 things that should be sealed. He pulled out another sheet, a map with several cities circled. They're moving. Whoever it is, they're laying tracks. And if it's who I think it is, it's not just about tying up loose ends. Travis looked down. One of the circled cities was Biloxi. They're coming here, he asked, a tightness in his chest. They already are, Walter replied, and if they find me before I finish what I started, then none of this will matter. What are you trying to finish? Walter didn't answer right away. Instead, he placed a sealed envelope on the table and slid it toward Travis. If anything happens to me, and I mean anything, you take this to Chief Green. You say my name, my real name, Langston. Walter shook his head. Hymonge Augustus Langston that night. Travis can't sleep. He reopens the map Walter gave him and notices something he hadn't seen before. A faint red X marked, not over a city, but over Keesler itself. The red X over Keesler base kept Travis up for the better part of 2 nights. He couldn't shake the feeling that time was closing in, that something bigger was already in motion. Walter had vanished. Again, no sign of him on the trail bench, the clinic, or even the base perimeter. His address empty. No mail, no lights, just a locked door, and a faint sense that whoever had lived there didn't expect to return. But the envelope was still in Travis's hands, and it led him to a name, Miriam Langston, Walter's widow, or at least, she had been listed as such in a decade-old archive. A retired librarian, living in a quiet suburb just outside Pensacola. The idea that she might still be alive, and that she believed her husband had died 35 years ago, made the whole thing feel even more unreal. But Travis couldn't stop now. He made the drive one Saturday morning, heart in his throat. The house was modest, sun-bleached, the kind you'd miss if you blinked at the wrong turn. A wind chime tinkled near the porch. The woman who answered the door looked to be in her 70s. Her eyes were sharp, her posture proud. Yes, she asked. Mrs. Langston, Miriam. She studied him for a second. Depends who's asking. Travis hesitated, then held out the envelope. I was asked to bring this to you, by someone named Walter, or Raymond. He said you'd understand. Her face went pale. She took the envelope with trembling fingers and stepped back, motioning him inside without a word. The living room was filled with old books and framed black and white photos. One showed a young man in uniform, lean and standing next to a woman with the same fierce eyes as Miriam. Travis recognized him instantly. That was the last photo I ever got, she said softly, sitting down on a faded floral couch. The day he left for the last mission, they told me he died in an explosion. No body, no funeral, just a folded flag. I don't think he died, Travis said gently. Miriam looked up at him. I know, that stopped him. I knew the moment they told me. There was no grief in their voices, just protocol. I waited years. Thought maybe he'd knock on the door someday, but nothing. So, I let the world think I believed it. She opened the envelope. Inside was a photo of her, taken recently, and a note, scribbled in Walter's jagged handwriting. You were right to wait. I'm sorry it took this long. Miriam covered her mouth with her hand, her shoulders shaking. Why didn't he come back? Travis asked. She looked at him with tear-filled eyes. Because he made a choice to stay buried, to protect something, or someone. But if he sent you, it means he knows it's not over. As Travis leaves the house, Miriam stops him. One last thing, she says, handing him a worn key. There's a locker at the train station in Gulfport. I haven't opened it since 1990. It's time someone did. The locker was rusted, tucked behind a vending machine in the far corner of Gulfport's nearly abandoned Amtrak station. Travis hadn't even known the station still operated. Most people didn't, but the key fit perfectly, the lock turning with a heavy click that sounded far louder in the quiet space than it should have. Inside was a single metal case. No bomb squad codes, no fingerprint sensors, just a latch, stiff from time, and a sealed folder inside marked Archive R082, Do Not File. Travis sat on a nearby bench and opened it. Inside were photos, not of battlefields or enemy targets, but of people, men in suits shaking hands, quiet meetings in hotel lobbies. A U.S. senator speaking to a man Travis recognized from Walter's old team photo. All of it documented in neat, typed labels, and all of it pointing to one terrifying truth. Orpheus wasn't just a rogue unit, it had been a shadow command, an unofficial branch that purported to someone far above military oversight, someone inside the government itself. There were names, dates, and, at the bottom, a page labeled Active Operatives, post-dissolution only. One name was not crossed out: Langston, R.A., the last living member. Until now, there was also a USB drive, small, unmarked, and a note in Walter's handwriting, folded tightly and wedged beneath the folder. If you're reading this, I'm gone. I knew they'd come eventually. But someone has to remember. Someone has to decide what comes next. You can walk away, Travis, or you can open that drive and know what they did, what I did. But once you know, there's no going back. Travis stared at the drive in his hand. It weighed almost nothing, but it might as well have been a grenade. A noise behind him. He turned quickly, heart hammering, but saw only an elderly couple shuffling toward the platform, hands intertwined. No one was watching him. Not yet, but they would be. Soon. He pocketed the drive, closed the locker, and walked out into the Gulfport sun. He didn't know what he'd do with what he'd learned. Not yet, but he knew this much. Walter Langston had disappeared to protect something and someone. And now, that burden passed to him. Maybe that's how it always was. The ghosts didn't vanish. They handed off their stories to the next one willing to carry them.
If you've made it this far, it means this story touched you in some way. So don't leave without subscribing. It really helps the channel and keeps me motivated to share more stories like this. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? And which part of this story moved you the most?